There's a building in Washington where people sit in expensive chairs and decide how much your money is worth. They don't ask you, they don't take a vote, they just decide. And when they want more money to exist, they don't fire up printing presses in a basement somewhere. They do something far stranger. They open a spreadsheet and type in a number. That's it. New money, created from nothing. And before you think this is some conspiracy theory cooked up in a forum at 3 a.m., this is exactly how the system works. It's legal, it's normal, and it happens every single day. So let's talk about what money printing actually is, because if you think it involves ink and paper and machines that go brrr, you're about 20 years out of date. Here's the thing nobody tells you when you're young. Money isn't real, not in the way you think it is. That dollar in your pocket, it's not backed by gold, it's not backed by silver, it's not backed by anything except a collective agreement that it has value. The paper itself costs about 7 cents to produce. The rest of its worth exists purely because we all believe in it, which sounds insane until you realize that's how it's always worked. Even when money was gold coins, the gold only had value because people agreed it did. We've just removed the middleman. But here's where it gets interesting, and by interesting, I mean slightly terrifying. When people say money printing, they're usually talking about something that doesn't involve printers at all. They're talking about the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States. And the Fed doesn't print money in the traditional sense. It creates it digitally, out of thin air, with accounting. Let me show you how. Imagine you're a bank, a big one, and the Federal Reserve wants to stimulate the economy. Maybe there's a recession. Maybe unemployment is high. Maybe everyone's panicking because of a global event that shut down half the planet. The Fed decides it needs to inject money into the system. So here's what it does. It buys something from you, usually government bonds, treasury securities, basically IOUs from the government. These bonds are already out there, sitting on balance sheets, being traded around. The Fed says, I'll take $1 billion worth of those. And you, the bank, say, great, that'll be $1 billion. So the Fed opens an account, your account, and it types $1 billion. That's new money. It didn't exist 5 seconds ago. Now it does. The Fed didn't take it from anywhere. It didn't tax anyone. It didn't borrow it from another country. It simply credited your account with $1 billion that did not previously exist in the economy. This is called quantitative easing, but honestly, it should be called we made up some money. And here's the wild part. It works, kind of, sometimes. Let's zoom out for a second. When the Fed does this, when it creates new money and uses it to buy bonds, it's trying to do two things. First, it's giving banks more cash to lend out. More lending means more business activity. More business activity means more jobs. That's the theory. Second, it's driving down interest rates. If the Fed is buying up bonds, the price of bonds goes up. And when bond prices go up, yields go down. Lower yields mean cheaper borrowing costs. Cheaper borrowing costs mean people take out loans to buy houses, start businesses, expand operations. Again, theory. In practice, a lot of that newly created money doesn't trickle down to small businesses or workers. It flows into assets, stocks, real estate, crypto for a chaotic minute there. Wealthy people who own assets see their net worth balloon. Everyone else sees prices go up and wonders why everything feels more expensive even though their paycheck hasn't changed. This is where the tension lives. The Fed creates money to stabilize the economy, but it doesn't control where that money goes, and often it goes to the people who already have money. Which brings us to a question nobody really wants to answer. Who pays for this? Because here's the uncomfortable math. When you create new money, you're not creating new value. You're just distributing the existing value more thinly. If there are $100 in the economy and you print another 100, you don't suddenly have twice as much wealth. You just have twice as many dollars chasing the same amount of goods. This is inflation, and inflation is a hidden tax. It doesn't show up on your paycheck. The government doesn't send you a bill. But every time new money is created, the money you already have loses a little bit of purchasing power. Your savings get quietly diluted. A loaf of bread costs more. A gallon of gas costs more. Your rent goes up, and it's not because of greed or supply chains or corporate price gouging, though those can play a role. It's because there are more dollars floating around, and each one is worth a little less.
So when the Fed prints trillions during a crisis, which it did in 2008 and again in 2020, it's making a choice. It's choosing to devalue everyone's money slightly in order to keep the financial system from collapsing entirely. And maybe that's the right choice. Maybe it's the only choice. But let's not pretend it's free. Now, some people will tell you this is fine, that the Fed knows what it's doing, that inflation is transitory or manageable or already priced in. Other people will tell you this is a Ponzi scheme with extra steps, that we're living through the slow-motion collapse of fiat currency, and it's only a matter of time before confidence evaporates and the whole thing unravels. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, which is the most annoying place for the truth to be. Because here's what we know for sure. The money supply has exploded over the last 15 years. In 2008, the Fed's balance sheet was under $1 trillion. By 2020, it was over $8 trillion. That's not a typo. $8 trillion created and deployed into the financial system. And for a while, inflation stayed low, which confused everyone. Economists had predicted that printing that much money would send prices through the roof, but it didn't, at least not right away. Then 2021 happened. Inflation spiked. Suddenly, a used car cost more than a new one did 2 years ago. Groceries became a budget line item people actually had to think about. The Fed, which had spent years insisting inflation was dead, had to backpedal fast. Now they're raising interest rates, trying to cool things down, trying to pull some of that money back out of the system. But you can't unprint money. Once it's out there, it's out there. So what does this mean for you? It means your money is always losing value, slowly, invisibly, by design. It means the system is built on trust. Trust that the Fed won't print so much money that the currency becomes worthless. Trust that inflation will stay under control. Trust that when things go bad, someone smart in a quiet room will know how to fix it. And maybe they will. So far, they have. The dollar is still the global reserve currency. People still accept it, still want it, still use it to price oil and settle international debts. But trust is a fragile thing. There are more dollars in existence today than at any point in human history. Most of them were created in the last 15 years. And while the economy has grown, it hasn't grown nearly as fast as the money supply. At some point, the bill comes due. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe we've figured out a way to print forever. Consequences be damned. Maybe modern monetary theory was right all along, and deficits don't matter as long as you control your own currency. Or maybe we're just really good at kicking cans down roads. Here's the part that should keep you up at night. No one actually knows what happens if this goes wrong. We've never run this experiment at this scale. Sure, we've seen hyperinflation before, Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, but those were smaller economies with structural problems and political chaos. The United States is the largest economy on the planet. The dollar underpins global trade. If confidence in the dollar breaks, we're not talking about expensive bread. We're talking about a systemic unraveling that touches every country, every market, every person holding any form of savings. And the people making these decisions, they're smart, educated, well-meaning, but they're also human, and humans are really bad at predicting black swan events. They're bad at imagining tail risks. They're bad at knowing when they've crossed a line until it's too late. So when someone tells you the Fed has it under control, ask yourself, how would they know? Money printing isn't evil, it's a tool, a powerful one. And like any powerful tool, it can build or destroy depending on how it's used. But the fact remains, your money is worth less today than it was yesterday, and it'll be worth less tomorrow than it is today. Not by much, just a little, a fraction of a percent, until one day, maybe it isn't. And the strangest part is we all just accept it. We go to work, earn dollars, save dollars, spend dollars, and trust that the system will hold. Because what's the alternative? The Fed will keep doing what it does. Politicians will keep spending. Banks will keep lending.
And all of it will keep running on a foundation of belief. Belief that a number on a screen is worth something. Belief that the people in charge know what they're doing. Belief that tomorrow will look a lot like today, and maybe it will. But if you ever want to understand why people feel like they're working harder for less,
why the gap between rich and poor keeps widening, why housing feels impossible and retirement feels like a joke. Start here. Start with the fact that money isn't printed, it's conjured, and someone somewhere is deciding how much yours is worth.